guys, and welcome to Book and Loop, where happiness is handmade and the best boyfriends are always found in books. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a book review for Rachel Smythe's Lore Olympus. I have mentioned in previous videos how I am a huge Greek mythology person, and so when I saw this, I just had to pick it up. It had been recommended to me by a bunch of my friends, and I was super excited to jump into it. Like I said, I mentioned in previous videos how I am absolutely in love with Greek mythology, every single story. I really love the Hades and Persephone story. I think it's one of the best in Greek mythology. My all-time favorite Greek mythology story is actually the one in which they kind of like give you the idea of how soulmates were created, and that man was born with 4 legs, 4 arms, 2 heads, 2 hearts. Fearing that they were going to be too powerful, the gods decided to split man up into 2 so that it was 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head and 1 heart, and that for the rest of eternity mankind would wander around looking for their other half. That is my all-time favorite Greek mythology story, and I don't know, I know it seems like obviously like a very like romantic one, definitely not as impactful or influential as, say, the Odyssey or the Iliad or the story of Heracles or anything like that. I still think it's a pretty nice story and one that I really love. But second place to that, of course, is Hades and Persephone. Probably tied with Orpheus and Eurydice. I think that their story is really great as well. So Lore Olympus takes you into a more modern world with the Greek gods. So they have cell phones and they have cars, and they are living in these really lavish apartments and go to these crazy lavish parties and like all this different stuff. So it brings it into more of a modern context. I feel like I can really relate to Persephone in a lot of ways, in that like coming into this new world, like being very innocent and like not really understanding like parties and social gatherings, and like kind of having to like figure that all out. And I think that's something everybody goes through as well. For me, like it was when I went away to college and like had for the first time like to kind of like fend for myself, and like similar to how Persephone kind of like turns to Artemis as her guide into this new world that she's able to explore. Like I could see myself in that when I was a freshman in college, and I turned to my boyfriend at the time and my roommates to kind of like help me figure out, okay, like now it's time to be an adult and I have to figure out life basically, and like cooking for myself and traveling by myself and fending for myself and all that. So I definitely felt like I could relate very well to Persephone during the story. I think that the way that Rachel Smythe did Eros's story was really great. I loved the imagery that she used. Even they're showing like this image, very specifically this image, like stuck out in my head. So they showed his heart breaking. Like, oh my goodness, I was in the car reading this and I was like, oh my goodness, like my heart was just breaking with his. And it is like such a powerful moment. Like that story overall is a very powerful story, because you think about that sense of betrayal from the person that you love, and this is supposed to be someone that trusts you and trusts everything you do, and I mean you trust them with every piece of you, and to have them turn around, not trust, give you the same level of trust and respect that you were giving them, like that's heartbreaking. So I think that she did a really great job handling those emotions on the page, and really like bringing that to life through her drawings. I think that what she is doing with Hera is very interesting. You always kind of think of Hera and Zeus as being like yeah, like they're this very powerful couple, but at the same time they have a lot of issues. In a lot of other stories, they're not overly affectionate to each other because of, obviously, Zeus is sleeping around with other people, and Hera is very faithful to him. And so to see kind of like how the two of them interacted, especially during the beginning, during the party scene, where they're kind of like all lovey-dovey and all over each other and like happy, and then it doesn't come up until later that Zeus has a lot of different um lovers, for lack of a better word. um but you still don't really see Hera like interact with this. I'm interested to see if that's something that will be like touched upon later on in the series. And obviously I know that I can like go to Webtoon and read the book on there, but I feel like I started now reading it on paper, so I feel like I want to continue to read it on paper, so I probably will wait until July. I mean, I have to say, Hades is a softie. I've always felt like he was. I never really, while I love Hercules, despite all of its getting a lot of the mythology wrong, I didn't really vibe well with the idea of Hades being a villain. If you like really like sit down and consider everything that happens in Greek mythology, he's really like not a bad guy. And like, I mean, this book depicts it very well, and like general mythology as well depicts it very well, that he was very fair and very like saw Persephone as his equal. Whereas like, you know, like you have Zeus and Hera where it's like Zeus is on top and like nobody could top him, and the Hera was never going to have the amount of power that Zeus had, and there was a no respect there between the two of them. I mean, like Hera respected Zeus, but Zeus didn't really respect Hera in any way, and that kind of like caused a lot of problems. And these are supposed to be like the examples, like those are like who you're supposed to follow. And then like you have the underworld where it's like nobody really wants to go there, and like Hades is always painted to be this kind of like villain of the story, but he was so incredibly respectful to Persephone and was always fair with the people that came into the underworld with their judgments, and he made it a point for Persephone to always feel like she was equal to him. It's something that I think a lot of people should strive more for, rather than having it be like, oh, Zeus, he's the king of the gods, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, he had so much, like, disrespect for not only his wife, but, like, the other women in his life as well. Whereas you have Hades, who's, like, a big softie and, like, a wife man. Like, he just, like, loves her so thoroughly. And there's a lot to be said about that, especially considering the times and considering I mean what all the other gods were doing at the time. You know, like all of them kind of had multiple lovers and cheated and did all that crazy stuff. But you have Hades, who is so thoroughly invested in Persephone and making her happy because he very genuinely does love her. And I just think it's so beautiful. I love it. And obviously there are some differences between Lore Olympus and your regular mythology. Whereas in regular mythology, Persephone is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, and Zeus kind of like gives Hades permission to take Persephone away. We don't really have that situation in this story. There was no like mention of Zeus being Persephone's father in the book, which is fine. I mean, it's still not as rough as the movie Hercules is, where like, I mean, I could make a whole video going on and on and on about all of the things that are in Hercules that are not accurate to mythology, such as like really like Hercules was, well, I mean, first of all, his name was Heracles, and Hercules is the Romanization, but he was really like a demigod and not an actual god that got turned mortal and like whatever. That's a story for another time. If that's something you guys are interested in, I would be happy to make that video. But let's try and focus today. Which is very hard for me. I'm not a good focuser. I get off track a lot. I'm sure that if you guys have been watching my other videos, you have noticed that I get distracted by other things that are going on, and then I go on a tangent, and then I'll always come back. But so there is one scene in the book that I absolutely adored and like squealed when I was reading it, and like just like was beautifully drawn, and like was such like a tender moment, and it was like such a small moment. Maybe not small, I don't know. It felt like a small moment, like, or like something that like if you were the characters, like it would be a small moment, but it would mean a lot, if that makes sense. Because like sometimes the smallest moments mean the most. And that moment is when Persephone wakes up in the underworld, and she's kind of like roaming around like Hades' palace, and she sees Cerberus, and Cerberus growls at her, and he comes to her and like sticks his like nose up against her, and she like leans back, and then Hades comes behind her and like tells the dog to stop. And like here's like the scene, and it's just like drawn so beautifully, and like this whole page is like so dynamic, and like I feel like you can like feel the movement in it, and I just like love stuff like that. I'm not a good artist, I'm not great at drawing. I always have wanted to be good at drawing. I used to practice a lot when I was little, like a lot when I was little, and I kind of have not been as much recently. I got the iPad last year. See, here I go again on the tangent. I got the iPad last year, and I drew like quite a bit at the beginning when I got it, and then after that, like I kind of used it more so for schoolwork, and then I'm trying to get back into it. I have been using it to do like my thumbnails for YouTube, which I feel like is good, putting it to good use. But I wish that I had the ability to capture like movement, and I mean I can like barely draw like symmetrical eyes, like, or I definitely could not draw a hand. I love the you know like the memes of the people that are like drawing the hands behind the back, so that you know, like drawing a character standing with their hands behind their backs so that they don't have to like draw the hands. Like that was like me as a kid, like, and even like sometimes now I'm just like no hand, like stubs for hands, because like hands are hard. I did a comic booking and illustration class when I was in high school, and I did like a whole page full of just hands, like hands, like blah, 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 like over and over again, just trying to learn how to draw hands because I was not good at it. And I've gotten like a little better, not a lot better, but I've kind of just accepted the fact that I'm always going to be like mediocre at drawing, and I'm going to leave it to the professionals that are good at drawing, and I'm happy to read their work and give my praise to it and their ability to draw very beautifully. So that scene, like I said, was just kind of like my heart like melted. I was like, this is so cute. Like I just loved it. I will say I did not like Apollo, and I don't think you're supposed to like Apollo, but like what a jerk. I mean, like when you read Percy Jackson and you read The Trials of Apollo, like yes, Apollo is very pompous, and he's very like, oh look at me, like I'm so great, blah 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 blah. Like Rick Riordan has like a million haikus of Apollo talking about how great he is, right? And I feel like that was like captured very well in here, but he was just such a jerk. And it made me sad because like you do like grow to love him in The Trials of Apollo. And I feel like he's like, maybe I just like haven't read a lot with Apollo in it of traditional Greek mythology. Like I feel like he's like not that bad. it made me sad. I'm not gonna say what the scene was because it was like upsetting. So like, if you're gonna read it, like, just watch out for Apollo because he's not the nice guy that you think he's gonna be. And I was a little disappointed in Artemis as well in this scene because like she is so wary of everybody. And like you could see like when Hades drops Persephone off, like Artemis like screams at him and she's like, how could you go near her and all this different stuff. But like she like leaves Persephone with Hermes and Apollo without really a second thought. I mean like she like tells them to let themselves out. So like I guess she like didn't think her brother would be doing anything. But I don't know. Like she's so wary of everybody and she like and I guess like that is true. Like a lot of times like we do turn a blind eye to our family and like you always give your family like the benefit of the doubt where you're like, you know, like that's my family, they wouldn't like they're not like that, you know. So like I guess like that was like kind of the reason like she like left him unattended, but it just like I don't know, didn't sit right with me, which is fine. I mean, it's not supposed to sit right with you, like obviously, but it's just like upsetting. But anyway, so I did really love Hades. I think that Poseidon is really funny in this. I love how he's kind of like this like really like angry, boisterous guy and like he is kind of like just like this big brute, which is more so a characteristic that I would have attributed to Ares more so than Poseidon. But it's interesting to see Poseidon possess these qualities. I love seeing that like brotherly interaction and that brotherly bond because it's not really something that you get to see in traditional mythology where you have like the resentment or the arguments or the territorial aspect of the gods in traditional Greek mythology. So it's nice to see them like acting like brothers and going out to brunch and hanging out at a party and talking about girls, and I think that that's a really refreshing take on the three of them because it's not one that you see very often. So I was very appreciative of the interactions between Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. I thought they were really great. And even when Hera shows up and kind of like tells them off for talking about girls, like it is like just like nice. We love to see it. Like actual like family interaction, you know. I love the fact that Hades has like seven dogs, I think. Let me go back. Yes, 7. Where like I'm just like I'm dying to know why he has all these dogs. I mean like Cerberus, like obviously like everybody knows about Cerberus, but like that he has like all these other dogs with like the funniest names. Like I love Mushroom is and Cordon Bleu. Like where did he get these dogs? And I'm hoping that they talk about it later on. And the way he like talks to them too, when like someone asks like how Cerberus's coat is like so shiny, and he's like, I feed them the souls of murderers and sometimes egg whites. Like it's just like so like funny and like pure, like, and I love because like that's how I've always viewed Hades, as being like the brother that got dealt the short end of the stick, and like he's doing his best. I mean, obviously he's the god of death. Well, not the god of death because that's Thanatos, but like he's the god of the underworld and he rules over the kingdom of the dead, and like that comes with a really heavy price tag in that people don't really want to like worship you to the same level they would the sea god, or they would the goddess of love or something like that, you know, where it's like people fear you, and it's not just humans, but it's like the other gods too kind of like fear him and shun him because he's the weirdo brother that or uncle or cousin that lives underground and like hangs out with dead people. So it's like you kind of like feel bad for him because it's like that was like when they divided it, that's what he got. And like, he's doing his best. He's doing his best. And I don't think it's fair the way that, like, even think about, I hate to bring it up again, but think about Hercules, even how the motivation behind him wanting to take over Olympus was that he was not respected by the others and he was looked down upon and treated as a weirdo. And like, I think that there's something to be said about that. And like, even like translating that into like our own modern society, in that like you have that kid in school that whatever, like when I was in high school I watched anime and people thought it was weird. So like, you have that kid in school that watches anime and you're gonna look down on them and you're gonna shun them because they're doing something different than you. Or even like looking at somebody's background and being like, oh, okay, like you come from a poorer background, so we're gonna look down on you. And like, you like pick these people out as being weirdos for things that are out of their control, honestly. Like, and it is a problem. Like, it's a huge problem. So I think like looking at like Hades in the context of like our modern society and like how he's basically like the picked on scapegoat for a lot of the Greek mythology stories is like really, I think it's really interesting to look at it that way. And there I am again going on another tangent. This one was more so related to the book. I mean, I'm talking about these, so I'm sorry, going back to my example from before, there's like it's like an interesting dynamic because like when you think about it, like you do kind of, and it's not intentional, um it's just kind of something that happens, and it happens with me and my sisters all the time, where people are like, oh, you're such a huge reader and like you're nothing like your sisters, and your sisters are nothing like you. And there is like this expectation that people that are raised in the same family are going to be similar. And so there is like a little bit of understanding in Artemis's thought process, where she's kind of saying like, where you have like Zeus and Poseidon who sleep around or and are unfaithful, so it would make sense if Hades was the same way, but like real people don't work like that. And I think that the book portrays that very well, in that like Hades isn't like his brothers in that way. And I mean, even like regular mythology, he's not like his brothers in that way. And like, I think that that's something that people would do very well to remember, about other people as well, because it doesn't matter if you're raised by the same people in the same house, in the same room, you're gonna have differences because you're a different person. So I think that it's very interesting to see like this context of the like brother sibling relationship and growing up, especially because Hades is the oldest brother. So normally it would kind of be like the other way around, where like he would set the example and then like the other two would be expected to follow his lead. But it's like not the case here because of Zeus's position in life and Poseidon's position in life. They've kind of set the tone for how people expect Hades to behave. This got like way theoretical, way more theoretical and like psychological than like I wanted it to be. I was gonna just have this be like a very objective, like this book was very good and I enjoyed it and I think you should read it. But I just can't help myself when it comes to Greek mythology. Like I get too into it and I get like myself so hyped up. Like I said, I wrote my senior thesis on it for college, and it's just like always been something I'm very passionate about. I have a bookshelf dedicated to strictly Greek mythology in my room, and it is just my favorite thing. I just love it, and I love talking about it, and I love talking about the theories and the psychology and the just overall, like, message, themes, and meanings of Greek mythology and what we can learn from it. So this is a very long-winded message to kind of just say, I think that Lore Olympus was very good. I really enjoyed reading it. I thought the images were absolutely incredible. I thought that the storytelling was really good. I think that I am going to be very impatient waiting for the next volume. I'm super, super excited to eventually have them all sitting on my shelf because they are just, first of all, stunning. I mean, the contrast in colors of Hades and Persephone is just gorgeous. I mean, specific shades of blue and pink that she chose are just like amazing. Like, they play so well off of each other. Like, look at that. Like, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful, right? I mean, this one is gorgeous. I love where you kind of have like that split to kind of show like how they are from two very different places and they do deal with very different things. Whereas like Hades, like I said, is like ruling over the dead and like is in charge of the kingdom of the dead, and I mean, he does like wealth too, but like he's more well known for his like kingdom of the dead thing, like ruling over the underworld. Whereas you have like Persephone, who's the goddess of spring and like is all about life and bringing life to the world, and it's very interesting. I think that like the juxtaposition between the two characters is so fascinating, where you have like these two people that their roles are completely different in life, and I think that says a lot about being different and how like being different is a good thing. Like, you have these two people that play off of each other so nicely and they work well together, and it's not forced, and it's not like there's no need to look elsewhere because the other person is always interesting because they're different and it's something that you can look forward to, you know? It does work, and I think that that's just very beautiful. But I think that Lore Olympus was amazing, and I think that you should definitely go pick it up. If you are impatient, then I suggest reading the webtoon version of it, I guess. I can't really suggest it because I haven't read it yet. I haven't read the webtoon version. I only read this version. So like I do know people that have read it and have suggested to read the webtoon version. So if you're impatient and you don't like waiting, because this is like chapters 1 to 25, and there's like 160 chapters, so like that's like a lot that you're gonna have to wait for to get if it's gonna be in 25 chapter increments. It's gonna be like 5, I'm not good at math, I was an English major, it's gonna be like what, like 6, does that make sense? 6, 25, 20, 50, 75, 7, I guess like 7, 6, probably 6, and then they'll just like make the like later volumes like a little longer. So it'll wind up being like about 6 books, and this one came out in November of 2021. I finished this and immediately looked up to see when I could get the next one, and was very, very upset to find out that it was not coming out until July. And that's a very long time away, it feels like. I mean, I finished this in about a day, and I mean, it just was so beautiful, and I just wanted more immediately. It shouldn't be too bad, like, of a wait, I'm hoping. Do yourself a favor and go and either get a copy of Lore Olympus. I'll put a link to the book on Goodreads below, as well as a link to, I mean, I bought mine at Target, so I'll put the link to the Target copy, and then go and read it, or read it on webtoons. Just read it because it was good, and I think it has a lot of important themes and messages that we can learn a lot from. And there is something to be said about Greek mythology as a learning tool for understanding humanity and modernity and what we as people have been going through for a very long time. Because when you think back, I mean, like, Greek mythology, that's like BC, like, like, I'm gonna throw a number out and I don't think it's gonna be right, and if it's wrong then I will like flash at the bottom like what the right date is, but I mean like around like what, 800 BC, and like these are issues and problems and themes that people were going through back then that we're still being faced with today, and it's stuff that you can learn, and I think it's so vitally important that we learn from the past, and we learn best through stories. And that's why Greek mythology, and especially Greek mythology retellings where we're bringing those stories into a modern context, are very, very important. So that's my spiel. That's all I have to say. I think. Who knows? So that is Rachel Smythe's Lore Olympus, and I hope you guys are going to pick it up and read it and discuss with me in the comments below. Feel free to drop a comment if you've read Lore Olympus, or if you want to read Lore Olympus, or if you have a suggestion that you think that I should pick up, and I would be happy to discuss it with you. That is going to be all from me today, and I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!